There are places that don't exist on paper, floors that don't appear in blueprints, rooms erased from memory. But sometimes they remember you. In the shadowed corners of Asia's gleaming cities, where modern lights mask ancient fears, spirits still linger. In elevators that move on their own, in app alerts no one else receives, in doorways that open not to homes, but to history. This is the unseen architecture of the haunted, where superstition isn't a whisper of the past, it's a warning, and the line between technology and the spirit world is far thinner than we dare believe. Welcome to Ghosts of Asia, where every story is rooted in truth or something older. Tonight, we follow a man named Nat, a tenant, a skeptic, a believer by the end. This is the story of the floor that wasn't there. The sun was already falling behind the skyline when Nat rolled his suitcase across the marble-tiled lobby of the Silvarin residences. The building smelled of lemon-scented polish and air-conditioned stillness, modern, sleek, and expensive. He had signed the lease just 3 days earlier, remotely. A promotion at the firm came with perks, and this place was supposed to be one of them. The concierge, a young man with a perfect part in his hair and a name tag that read Tan, gave him a polite smile. "First time in Bangkok, Kun Nat?" "First time living here," Nat replied, handing over his ID. Tan tapped the screen, nodded. "You're in 12A. Just you, right?" "Yeah." Tan hesitated just a blink too long. "The unit's ready. Elevators to your left. Welcome." Nat noticed it immediately when he stepped in. The elevator panel. The button for floor 13 was missing. There was 12, then 12A, then 14. Not uncommon in Asia, he knew. Many buildings skipped the number 13 out of superstition. In Thai, the word for 13 sounds similar to sadness. People avoided it the same way Westerners avoided black cats and broken mirrors. Still, 12A. That felt like cheating the curse. The elevator rose smoothly. Instrumental music played faintly, bright, sterile. Then a soft ding. The doors slid open to a well-lit hallway with glossy floors and recessed lights, all cold and too white. No windows, just silence. Unit 1207 was at the end. The plaque read 12A 1207. He punched in the code on the smart lock. The light blinked green. The door swung open. His new apartment smelled of new paint, polished wood, and filtered air. Sparse furniture had been arranged. A low black couch, a minimalist kitchen, pale curtains, a wide window overlooking the river. Everything was pristine, too pristine, like a showroom someone had just stepped out of. He pulled his suitcase inside, closed the door. Silence followed. No ambient city noise, no neighbors, no creaking pipes. Just quiet. He turned on the lights and walked around, familiarizing himself. The bedroom was at the back, tucked behind a sliding frosted glass door. The bathroom was spotless, its mirror tall and unblemished. The air felt cold despite the setting. He unpacked a few clothes, set up his laptop, connected to the Wi-Fi. The building's app downloaded automatically, Silvarin Link. It promised everything: smart lighting, concierge booking, elevator tracking, package delivery, and community news. Before bed, he scrolled through it out of curiosity. Under floors, it listed Level 12, Level 12A, Level 14, Facilities, Basement. No 13. Of course. Still, something about that bothered him. Why not call it 14? Why create a floor with a name that sounded like an asterisk, an afterthought? He brushed it off. Superstition wasn't his thing. Rationality paid better. He went to bed early, jet-lagged and exhausted. Bangkok's skyline shimmered beyond the window, gold lights reflecting off the Black River. At 1:13 a.m., the elevator chimed. He didn't hear it, not at first. It was the second chime that pulled him halfway from sleep. Then a faint shuffle, a rustle in the hallway, something soft, like feet moving over laminate. But when he blinked awake, there was only silence. He lay there for a while, staring at the ceiling. Eventually, he drifted off again. The next morning, he forgot about it. Later that day, he met one of the neighbors, Kun Somchai, a round man in his 60s who was walking a stiff-legged Shih Tzu in a pink bow. "Nu?" Somchai asked, pausing near the elevator. "Just moved in yesterday, 12A, 1207. "Brave," Somchai chuckled, not unkindly. "Why?" The man shrugged. "No reason, just most people prefer higher floors, less noise." "But I haven't heard a thing." "Give it time," Somchai said, then turned toward the elevator and added with a grin, "It remembers more than we do." Nat watched him disappear behind the elevator's closing doors. He stood there for a moment, oddly chilled. That night, the elevator chimed again, 1:13 a.m. Then a ding and a pause, as if someone had exited. Nat sat up. Nothing but silence. He tiptoed to the pier hole. The elevator was empty. No lights flickered, no sound. He opened the building's app, checked the elevator logs. The log for 1:13 a.m. read, "Destination floor 13. Return, lobby. Passengers, none." Nat stared at it, waiting for the number to correct itself. It didn't. There was no button for floor 13. There was no floor 13. He refreshed the app. Now the log was gone. The next morning, he brought it up with the concierge. "Excuse me, Tan, does the elevator ever glitch?" "What kind of glitch?" "Stopped on the wrong floor, gave a weird log?" Tan hesitated just slightly. "There's no floor 13, sir." "I know, but last night, around 1:13, the app showed—" "It's probably a sync issue. Happens sometimes when the app updates during off-peak hours. Would you like IT to check your device?" "No, it's fine." Tan nodded politely, but Nat noticed his fingers tightening slightly on the counter. Just for a second. That evening, Nat found the old blueprint of the Silvaran online. The tower had been built over an old commercial block, a series of shop houses, one of which had burned down in the 1980s. He scrolled further and found a scanned newspaper clipping. "Fire destroys shop house near Chao Phraya. Family of 4 presumed dead. Cause undetermined." It didn't mention the address, but when Nat checked the overlay map, the coordinates lined up. Right under where the Silvaran now stood. Right under his unit. That night, the elevator dinged again. But this time, it didn't stop. It moved. From the lobby, up. Then, floor 13. Then silence. Then back down. The next night, Nat couldn't sleep. Not because of the noise, there wasn't any. In fact, it was the stillness that kept him awake. That strange, heavy kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful, but watchful. A silence that presses in from the corners of the room, from behind the blinds, from inside the walls. He lay on his back, staring at the ceiling, trying not to think about elevators or app glitches or newspaper clippings about burned families. But at exactly 1:13 a.m., ding! The sound was soft, muted, like it came from another floor, but it was unmistakably the elevator. Nat sat up, fully alert this time. He reached for his phone and opened the Silverin Link app. The live elevator status was blank. Refresh. Still nothing. He slipped on his slippers, crossed the room, and opened the door slowly. The hallway outside was cold, sterile, and completely empty. No footsteps, no breeze, no flickering lights. Just that faint scent of floor cleaner and something else, something metallic. He padded softly down the hallway, stopping at the elevator. The panel glowed softly in the dark, like a sentinel waiting to be touched. He pressed the call button. Nothing. Pressed again. Still nothing. Then, without warning, ding! The doors slid open. The elevator was empty, but warm. He stepped inside. The air was heavier here, like someone had just stepped out, like breath still lingered. The mirror on the back wall showed his reflection, pale, sleep-deprived, alone. He looked at the panel. There it was again, 12, 12A, 14. No 13. He jabbed the lobby button. The doors closed slowly, almost reluctantly. As the elevator descended, the screen above the door flickered once, just once, then flashed 13. Nat's stomach dropped. Then it was gone. The screen corrected itself. Lobby. The lobby was empty, silent. He turned around to check the panel again. No button 13. He hurried back to his unit without looking behind him. The next morning, Nat took his phone to the building's management office. A middle-aged woman named Ning greeted him with a polite bow. "You saw floor 13?" she repeated, tapping her pen against her tablet. "No, I didn't go there, but the elevator said 13 for a second, and the log from the night before listed it as a stop." Ning kept her face neutral. Too neutral. "Perhaps just a visual error. Sometimes screens flash old data when rebooting. The Silverin system was updated recently." Nat leaned forward. "But there was a floor 13, wasn't there, before it became 12A? Ning looked at him just a little too long. Her fingers paused on the screen. "This building never had a 13th floor, Kunnat. It was designed that way." She smiled politely, but her eyes looked tired and afraid. That afternoon, Nat walked past an older maintenance worker mopping the hallway. The man didn't speak at first, but as Nat passed, he muttered something in Thai. Nat turned back. "Excuse me." The man glanced around, lowered his voice. "You're in 12A, yes?" "Yeah, why?" He tapped his temple. "Sometimes this building makes you see things, but it's not your eyes, it's the floor remembering." Nat frowned. "The floor?" The man didn't answer, just turned away and kept mopping. Back in his apartment, Nat pulled out his laptop. He dug deeper. He found an old Reddit thread in Thai, years old, buried deep in search results. Someone had posted about Silveran residences during its early construction. Comments mentioned a delay in permits, something about a fire code violation, and odd rumors about improper spiritual cleansing of the site. One comment, translated roughly, read, "Don't stay on 12A. It was 13. They changed the number, not the spirit." Another said, "A family died in the fire. No monks came. That's why the prayers never ended." Knott's skin prickled. He leaned back, staring at the wall, at the corner where the ceiling met plaster. It felt thinner somehow, like there was something behind it. That night, he couldn't help himself. He left his door open a crack and sat on the couch, lights off, phone in hand. He opened the Silveran Link app and kept it live. The elevator tracker glowed faintly on the screen. Midnight passed. 12:47 a.m., 1:02 a.m., 1:11 a.m. Then, ding! He stared at the screen. Elevator moving. Current, lobby to floor 13. He didn't breathe. No passengers listed. No sound outside. Just the soft, phantom sound of the elevator rising. Then a pause. Then the log changed. Return. Floor 13 to lobby. Passenger count, 0. But the camera feed, static. Then, one frame of someone inside. A dark blur, barefoot, head slightly tilted, then gone. The log disappeared. App refreshed itself. No recent elevator activity. Nat stood up slowly, walked to the door. The hallway was empty, but the elevator light was on, and the doors were just beginning to close, as if they'd been held open for a long, long time. He didn't sleep the rest of the night. He sat on the edge of his bed staring at the phone. At 3:06 a.m., he received a push notification, Silveran Link alert. You left your door open. Close it to avoid spiritual intrusion. Nat's breath caught. He stared at the message, then blinked. It vanished. No history, no notification log. He checked the app settings, and there was no alert type by that name. And his door? Still locked, still closed. But something on the inside, the faintest black streak now trailed across the floor, as if someone had walked in, covered in ash. By the third night, Nat began to sleep with the lights on. Not all of them, just the hallway light and the lamp by the bed. It made him feel like there was still a boundary between waking and dreaming, as if the shadows couldn't reach all the way in. He didn't tell anyone at work. How do you even start that conversation? "Hi, I think my elevator's haunted. Also, I may have seen a burned woman standing in a floor that doesn't exist." So he smiled, nodded, signed documents, answered emails. But inside, he was already unraveling. Because during the day, everything felt normal. But at night, the air changed. And then came the sounds. It started subtly, just a faint clicking behind the bathroom mirror, then a sigh through the ceiling vent, then, unmistakably, a voice, low, croaking, as if someone were reciting a prayer in another room. Nat pressed his ear to the wall. The voice was slow, repetitive, almost like a lullaby, except the words were harsh, guttural, Thai, but old. He caught one phrase again and again. Chai, ma, mai, die. He didn't speak much Thai. He looked it up. He cannot escape. He backed away from the wall. The voice kept going. That morning, he asked the front desk if the ventilation system was connected to other units. Tan shook his head, trying not to meet Nat's eyes. No, sir. Each unit has an isolated system, soundproof too. What about the maintenance ducts? Tan hesitated, then leaned in slightly, lowered his voice. There's a back shaft behind your floor. Was sealed during construction. You're not supposed to hear anything. Nat frowned. Then why do I hear? Tan didn't answer. He just looked tired. That evening, Nat brought in a portable recorder. He left it running in the bedroom while he stepped out for dinner. When he returned and played it back, the room filled with static. Then slowly, the sound of a woman crying. Not sobbing, just soft, stuttering breaths. Then a dragging sound, something heavy moving across the floor. Then, knock, knock, knock. 3 knocks, clear as day. He checked the door's smart camera, no motion detected. He checked the app log, no entry, no alerts. But near the bottom of the log, one message flickered briefly before vanishing. Floor 13, Unit 1207, mirror active. Mirror active? He checked the bathroom. Steam was fogging the mirror, even though the shower hadn't been used. He wiped it with his hand. There was something written underneath, faint, as if drawn by a finger in the mist. We see you. That night, the apartment grew cold. Not just air conditioning cold, but deep cold, concrete cold, the kind that creeps into your bones. He tried to sleep, but the whispering came back, this time clearer, from the vent above his bed. He turned off the light just to test. Instantly, the sound grew louder, as if the darkness had permission. He turned the light back on, silence. He reached up with a chair and flashlight, unscrewed the vent panel. Dust, wires, and something else. A strip of burned cloth, wedged deep inside, blackened, stiff, with a faded floral print. A child's pajama sleeve. He dropped it. The room felt smaller now, like he wasn't alone. At 1:13 a.m., the elevator chimed again. He didn't check. He curled under the blanket, eyes wide, staring at the ceiling. Then, thud, from inside the wall. Then another, a dragging sound. Then the faintest voice, close now, as if whispering into his ear. Nati, don't forget us. In the morning, he searched the name, Nati. It was his full name, but only his mother used it, only once in a while, when she was angry. No one else in his life called him that, but now something inside the walls did. He visited a small temple at the edge of the river that afternoon. The monks were quiet, peaceful. He approached one, a senior monk with eyes like wet stones. I moved into a new apartment, and strange things are happening. Noises, voices, a name I haven't heard in years. The monk didn't blink. He just nodded. Was there a fire there? The monk asked softly. Not hesitated. Yes. Did anyone pray for the dead? I don't think so. The monk closed his eyes. Then the spirits are still searching
Fire destroys the body, but it does not release the soul unless it is named, unless it is mourned. Nat swallowed. But I don't know who they are. The monk opened his eyes. Then they will ask you to remember. That night, Nat sealed the vent with duct tape. He turned off the lights. He waited. And still, the whispering came. Not from the walls this time. From the floor. From beneath the bed. He didn't dare look. Not when he heard soft, wet breathing. Not when the app pinged at 1:13 a.m. with one line of text. You are on the wrong floor.
Bangkok looked different in the daylight. Golden roofs gleamed from distant temples. Long-tail boats cut through the river like forgotten spirits in a modern sea. Noise filled every space: scooters, tuk-tuks, vendors, tourists. But Nat didn't hear any of it. He was on a mission. After another sleepless night filled with whispering vents and flickering lights, he needed answers, real ones. Not tech support, not app patches, not polite nods from concierges avoiding eye contact. He needed history. Old, black and white, forgotten history. He started at the city archives, tucked between two massive condominiums in the older district. The interior smelled of humidity and aged paper, with yellowed ceiling fans that moved slower than time itself. A tired woman behind the desk eyed him curiously. "I'm researching a building, the Silvarin Residences. Used to be shop houses there, right, before construction?" She raised a brow. "That land's changed hands many times," she said, pulling out a record book. "Do you have the old address?" He showed her the coordinates from his lease agreement. She traced her finger across the page, flipped a few more, then paused. "Here." She rotated the book toward him. 1987, Charonrap Soi 11, Incident Report, Structural Fire. There were no photos, just a paragraph. 3-unit structure destroyed by fire. Residents, Mr. and Mrs. S., 1 male child, 1 female elder, all presumed dead, no remains recovered. Fire began on top floor, cause undetermined. Nat stared at the line. No remains recovered, which meant no funerals, no rites, no monks, no release. He asked if there was any more detail. The woman pointed to an adjacent cabinet. "Check the microfilm, local papers from that year." He spent the next 2 hours scrolling through grainy black and white reels. Births, marriages, government corruption. Then he found it. Flames take 4 in Soi 11 shophouse blaze. The image showed the charred remains of a narrow building, a broken stairwell like a spine snapped in half, a girl's shoe in the rubble. The article was short. One witness, a neighbor, said she heard chanting before the fire. Not screams, just soft, low praying. And something else. The family was known to be quiet, traditional, kept an ancestral shrine on the 3rd floor, burned incense daily. Neighbors claimed to see red strings tied to their doorknobs and old symbols painted beneath the stairwell. Nat exhaled slowly. Fire, prayers, symbols. He left the archives in a daze and walked without direction. The city felt too bright, too loud. His phone buzzed with work messages he ignored. Eventually, he found himself near the river again, at a small shop filled with amulets, talismans, and old portraits of monks with closed eyes. Behind the counter sat a wrinkled man who barely looked up. Nat approached with the photo of the burned building on his phone. "Do you know anything about this place?" He squinted. "Shop house, near the pier, burned many years ago." "Yes," Nat said, "the family who lived there. They stayed too long." "What do you mean?" "They kept praying for the dead, but never prayed for themselves." Nat frowned. "I don't understand." The old man pulled something from under the counter, a slip of red cloth, scorched at the edge. He slid it toward Nat. "They tried to contain the spirit of one who died violently, bound it with rope, prayer, and silence. But silence isn't a lock, it's an invitation." He leaned forward. "And when fire comes to a place like that, it doesn't just burn walls, it burns time. It leaves echoes." Nat returned to Silvarin with the red cloth in his pocket. He took the elevator up to 12A. The hallway was empty as always, the air faintly cool. He opened his door. Something was different. The scent. Not cleaner, not air freshener. Burned wood. Faint, lingering. He walked slowly, checking each room. Nothing. But when he reached the bathroom, the mirror was fogged again, even though the water hadn't run. This time was written a single number. 3. Not 13, just 3. That night, Nat didn't sleep. He sat in the living room with the old red cloth beside him and the lights dimmed to a warm amber. He lit incense, not because he believed in anything, but because he needed to. The whispers began earlier than usual. This time, they weren't prayers. They were cries. Small, childlike, and a name. His name. "Nati, why did you leave?" He stood, walked to the mirror again, but the words were gone. He stared at his reflection for a long time. Then his phone lit up. New alert. Silvarin link. Evacuate. Fire detected on floor 13. The timestamp, 1:13 a.m. He jumped. Opened the door. The hallway was pitch black. Emergency lights flickered red along the baseboards. A low alarm beeped, slow, echoing. But when he stepped out, he realized the lights weren't red. They were orange, glowing softly from underneath the cracks in the elevator door, flickering like fire. He stepped closer, and the smell hit him. Ash, soot, something wet. Then silence. The lights shut off. The smell vanished. The elevator dinged. Doors opened. Empty. Inside, the panel looked the same. But just as the doors closed, he saw something flash behind the plastic. A number. 13. But this time, it didn't vanish. It stayed. Dimly lit, scratched but real. He pressed it. Nothing happened. He pressed again. Still nothing. But then, his reflection moved. He hadn't, but his reflection had. It raised its hand to the panel and pressed 13. The elevator lurched, not screamed. The elevator began to move. The elevator didn't move. It shuddered once, violently, then stopped. The panel went black. No floor number, no light. Just a sudden stillness so absolute, Nat could hear his own blood rushing in his ears. He pressed open door. Nothing. Pressed it again. Still nothing. Then, slowly, the light returned. But not the usual soft white glow. Now it was dim, orange, like candlelight. The panel flickered once, then lit up. Floor 13. Nat froze. This wasn't a glitch. This wasn't a hallucination. He hadn't dreamed it. Floor 13 existed, and he was on it. The elevator doors opened with a slow hiss, revealing a hallway that didn't belong in this century. The lights overhead flickered in sickly pulses. The walls were soot-stained, the wallpaper peeled and stained with smoke. Ceiling fans hung limp, unmoving. The floor was covered in ash, thick in places, like it had snowed indoors. And the air, God, the air. It smelled of wet charcoal and old incense, burned wood, dried blood. But the worst part? At the end of the hallway was his door. Unit 1207, identical, same number, same frame, except this version looked older. The paint was faded, the doorbell was cracked, the floor beneath it scorched. Nat stepped forward slowly, his footsteps crunching in the ash. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out. One notification from the Silvarenlink app, but not from the system. It was a direct message from System Root, Hidden Thread. Welcome home. The message auto-deleted before he could screenshot it. He reached the door. The keypad was the same model, but old, faded, rusted around the edges. A faint red glow blinked behind the cracked plastic. Without thinking, he typed his regular passcode, 1207. The lock clicked. The door creaked open. Inside was his apartment, but not. Same layout, same dimensions, but older, like a memory of the space. The furniture was there, but scorched at the edges. The table was half burned. The curtains were melted plastic. The TV was shattered on the floor. And on the couch, someone was sleeping. Him. Nat stood frozen. It was himself, asleep, curled on the side, half covered with a blanket. His face was peaceful, too peaceful, as if unaware that the walls around him were blackened with soot. He stepped closer. The air grew colder. Then, a sound. From the corner of the room, a soft hum, a lullaby, female. A woman stood beside the couch, facing away, barefoot. Long black hair hung limp down her back. Her clothes were soaked, burnt in places. Her fingers moved slowly, tracing circles in the air above sleeping Nat's chest. She didn't look up, didn't turn, just hummed. Nat opened his mouth to speak, but no sound came out. Then the woman whispered, "Only for you." His phone lit up in his hand, auto-dialing, screen flashing, +666. He slammed the phone face down on the table. The screen kept glowing. Then the woman turned, but not fully, just her head. Only her head. It twisted too far, bones cracking audibly, until her face stared back at him upside down, hollow-eyed and scorched. Her lips burned black. She smiled. Then everything went black. He woke up on the floor of his real apartment, back in Unit 12A. The lights were on, bright. The ash was on. His phone was beside him, face down, battery dead. But there was something else in his hand. A string of prayer beads, burned, still warm. He rushed downstairs. The concierge, Tan, was there. Nat ran to the desk, breathless. "I need help. I went to floor 13. I saw myself. I saw her." Tan stood very still. "Floor 13 doesn't exist." "Don't lie to me," Nat shouted. Other tenants glanced over. Tan looked around nervously, then leaned in. Quietly, "I believe you." Nat blinked. "What?" "I've worked here for 2 years. I've heard the stories, but it's only ever happened to one person." Nat's voice dropped. "Who?" Tan looked him straight in the eyes and said, "You." Nat backed away. The lobby felt suddenly foreign, cold, echoey. He checked his phone again, plugged in now, booting up. It loaded. No messages, no logs, no alerts, except one. In his private messages, sent at 1:13 a.m. From Silvarin Admin, hidden thread. "Emergency alert. Fire on floor 13. Evacuate immediately." He looked up at Tan. "Did you send this?" Tan shook his head slowly. "No one sent that. You're not supposed to get messages like that." Nat's hands trembled. "Then who did?" Tan looked toward the elevator, then back at Nat, and whispered, "Maybe someone who still thinks you're there." That night, Nat didn't sleep, he didn't eat. He sat on the floor, holding the prayer beads, the scent of ash still on his clothes. He opened the app again, searched through the back-end menus, hidden logs, admin access. One file caught his eye. Incident Archive 1207.log. He clicked it. The screen glitched, then played a security camera feed. Grainy black and white footage, time-stamped 1:13 a.m. The camera inside the elevator. No passengers. Then, suddenly from the corner, a girl appeared. Just appeared like she'd always been there. She was maybe 9, hair in braids, holding a teddy bear. She looked straight into the camera and mouthed something. Nat slowed the footage, enhanced, read her lips. "Come back." Then, static. The next morning, Nat avoided the elevator. He took the stairs from 12A down to the lobby. 13 flights, even though the directory said there were only 12. But it felt right. Honest. His muscles ached by the time he reached the bottom, but at least the stairs didn't lie. The elevator did. And now it was watching him. He felt it. Every time he passed by, the silver doors gleamed like eyes in waiting, reflecting more than just his image, like it remembered where it had taken him and who had come back with him, because something had. The beads on his desk still smelled of ash. The bathroom mirror fogged over, even with the fan running. And the walls, they whispered, even in daylight. At 3 p.m. he heard it again, the soft, repetitive sound from the vent. A child's humming. The same lullaby, but now slower, sadder, almost unfinished. He recorded it on his phone, played it back. There was a second voice, low, male, whispering over the lullaby in overlapping rhythms, repeating one phrase, "Press the button." He didn't want to, but he had to know. That night, he waited until the building was quiet. Midnight came and went. At 1:02 a.m., he left his unit and walked slowly to the elevator. The panel glowed softly. He pressed the call button. Ding! The doors opened. Empty. He stepped inside. As soon as he did, the lights dimmed by a fraction. The hum in the walls deepened. It wasn't just sound, it was pressure, like the elevator had closed its mouth around him. He stared at the panel. 12, 12A, 14, but no 13. He leaned in, studying the panel more closely. The buttons weren't touch screens. They were physical, plastic, sealed under a glass faceplate. Then he noticed something. A faint outline. The plastic there was fogged slightly, like someone had breathed on it. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a Swiss Army knife. With a soft click, he unfolded the blade and pried at the corner of the panel. The glass cover popped loose with a quiet snap. Behind it was the truth. There was a button, scratched, dull, unlabeled, positioned right between 12A and 14. He scraped gently at the surface. The dust gave way to a faint imprint. 13. Someone had intentionally hidden it. Nat stared at it for a long time. Then, he pressed it. The elevator jolted, not smoothly like usual. It jerked like something had caught the cable. Then began to move, down. One floor. Just one. The floor indicator blinked. 13. The doors opened. The hallway was different now. Not charred, not destroyed. This time, it looked alive, but not in a comforting way. The walls were painted in a yellow-white that had long since faded. The floor was linoleum, cracked and sticky. Old fluorescent lights buzzed and flickered overhead. It felt like stepping into 1987. There were shoes by every door, worn sandals, child-sized slippers. A mop bucket sat in the corner, rusted and still full of water. A calendar hung crooked on the wall. February. The year was too faded to read. And the air smelled like cooked rice and smoke. He stepped out. Everything was too quiet, like a soundproof box. He walked past door after door until he saw it. 1207. The same door from before. Only this time, it wasn't burned. It looked lived in. A small sticker of a cartoon rabbit was peeling off the edge of the frame. He reached out to knock, but the door opened before he could. A little girl stood there, barefoot, hair in twin braids, the same melted teddy bear clutched in her arms. She looked up at him, not afraid, just tired. "You came back," she said. Nat couldn't speak. Behind her, the apartment looked normal. A teak dining table, a floor fan, a woman's voice humming in the back room. He stepped in. Everything was soft, dusty, but whole. Then the humming stopped, and a voice called out, "Nate, is that you?" It wasn't the voice of a ghost. It was his mother's. He turned the corner into the bedroom. A woman stood by the window, hair tied back, thin shoulders, wearing a faded blouse. Her face was turned away. She was humming again. A lullaby. The same lullaby from the vents. He stepped closer. The woman didn't turn. Then the lights flickered. Once. Twice. And when she finally did turn, her face was not his mother's. It was burned, melted, skin blackened and cracked. And yet her voice was kind. "Don't forget us, Nate," she whispered. Then the flames returned. From the window, from the ceiling, the walls erupted in fire. The little girl screamed. The floor buckled. The world turned orange, and Nat fell. He woke up on the floor of the real elevator, back in Silverin. The doors were open. The hallway was dark. And in his hand was the melted teddy bear, still warm. He stumbled back to his unit, locked the door, and fell to the ground.
He held the bear for hours, unable to cry, unable to sleep. At 3:03 a.m., his phone buzzed. New alert, Silver and Link. Thank you for remembering. No source, no option to reply. The notification faded to ash on the screen.
Nat didn't leave the apartment for 2 days. He unplugged the smart speakers, turned off the building app, blocked out the vents with towels and tape. But none of it mattered, because the humming still came through the walls, because the lights still flickered, because the hallway still smelled, faintly, of fire. But most of all, because the teddy bear was still on the floor, half melted, half clenched, as if some small hand refused to let go. And Nat couldn't throw it away. He tried. He put it in a plastic bag, dropped it down the garbage chute, turned the latch, and walked away. That night, it was back on his bed, sitting upright, facing him. It was no longer a question of belief. Something was wrong with this building, and somehow it had decided he was the key to fixing it, or repeating it. At 1:13 a.m., the elevator chimed. He didn't hesitate this time. He got up, grabbed the teddy bear, and walked to the elevator barefoot, his steps soft on the cold laminate floor. The panel blinked to life as soon as he entered. 12, 12A, 14, and, now fully visible, 13. He didn't even press it. The elevator moved on its own, down, back to the floor that didn't exist. When the doors opened, the hallway had changed again. No longer modern, no longer restored. Now it was ruined, coated in ash from floor to ceiling. Every wall scorched black, the ceiling cracked, lights barely flickering above him, some swinging slightly, though there was no wind. The smell hit him like a memory. Burnt rice, charred cloth, melted plastic. Grief. He stepped out. His feet left prints in the soot. The teddy bear hung from his fingers, lighter than it should have been, as if it had hollowed out over time. A single overhead bulb buzzed loudly, casting sickly shadows that shifted when he didn't move. And there again was his door, 1207, but now half burned, the number barely hanging on, curled like a dried leaf. He stepped forward and pushed the door open. It creaked on warped hinges. Inside was what was left, a skeleton of his apartment. Walls stripped to black beams, glass shattered across the floor, the silhouette of furniture outlined in ash. But in the center of the room was something new, a circle, drawn in red string, black ash candles on each corner, prayer paper burned to flakes. He recognized the symbols from the archive images. They weren't meant to summon, they were meant to contain. He stepped inside the circle. The air changed instantly. He couldn't breathe, not because it was hot, but because something was watching. The teddy bear slipped from his hand and rolled to the edge of the circle, stopped. He knelt, hands trembling. Then he heard it. From the walls, from the vents, from everywhere. Children, crying, whimpering, praying. And one voice above the rest, a man's voice, frantic, broken. "It's not enough! It's not enough! Please, forgive me! Don't take them! Don't take her!" Then the sound of flames, rising fast, and the scream of a woman. Then silence. Nat fell forward, choking on smoke that wasn't there. And when he opened his eyes, he saw them. 4 figures standing in the blackened kitchen. A woman, her dress halfway burned off, hair stuck to her face. A man holding a photo frame, blistered skin melting from his hands. A child, and another child. The little girl with the braids, and beside her, a smaller boy, maybe 3. All 4 of them watched him. None moved, none blinked. The girl spoke. "Why didn't you remember us?" Nat tried to answer, but he couldn't. His mouth was dry, his voice buried. Then the man stepped forward. "We gave everything to stop it, to lock it in, but the prayers died with us." The woman followed. "The fire didn't end us, it opened the door." The children spoke together. "Now it opens for you." And then the floor split, not literally, but emotionally. The air became flame, and memory, and loss, and screams that had echoed for decades without names to carry them. Nat dropped to his knees, tears mixing with soot. He whispered, "I'm sorry. I didn't know. I didn't know who you were." The little girl stepped forward, placed her tiny burned hand on his, and said, "But you came back." The fire went out. The hallway fell silent, and when Nat opened his eyes, he was back in the elevator, alone, soot on his hands, the teddy bear in his lap. That morning, he checked the building app. There was no floor 13 anymore, not even hidden. The panel button was gone, as if it had never existed. But the string around his wrist, one of the red circle bindings, was still tied there, tight, unburned. The red string stayed tied to Nat's wrist. He tried cutting it. Scissors wouldn't work. A knife wouldn't bite. He even tried burning it with a lighter, but the flame went out the moment it touched. So he left it. By now, he understood enough to know it wasn't meant to be removed. The days blurred. His coworker stopped messaging. His phone rang, but only once at 1:13 a.m. Each night, a call from +6666. He never answered, but the voicemail icon always appeared afterward. And each time, the same recording. Soft breathing, then a lullaby, then the sound of a match striking flame. He stopped checking. The teddy bear no longer left his room. It sat in the corner like a shrine. He caught himself glancing at it when he walked by, not out of fear, but out of familiarity. The way you'd glance at an old photograph or a scar. One evening, as the sun bled into the skyline, Nat's power flickered. Not the whole building, just his unit, only his. The lights dimmed, then flared back to life, but lower, yellowed, like candles trapped inside light bulbs. He checked the app. No outages reported, but a new message was waiting. Sylvanan link, alert. Bedside presence detected. Unit 1207. No motion history, no camera footage, just a timestamp. 1:13 a.m., the previous night. But Nat hadn't moved, and he lived alone. That night, he left the bedroom light on. He lay still, staring at the ceiling. But something was different. The air wasn't cold. It was warm, almost humid, like someone had just taken a bath or lit an incense. Then came the humming, faint, delicate, a lullaby, the same one. Not from the vents this time, not from the hallway, but from inside the room, from behind him. He turned his head slowly, and there she was, the woman, sitting beside his bed, back turned, hair wet, hands resting in her lap. She looked as if she had been sitting there all night, humming to herself, watching him sleep. He tried to move but couldn't, not from fear, but from weight. An invisible heaviness pressed him into the mattress, like the room itself was breathing down on him. The woman kept humming, then stopped. The silence felt like thunder. She tilted her head, not all the way, not like before, just enough to suggest she had heard a question he hadn't spoken. Then she whispered, "We all wake up, eventually." And she reached forward, but not to him, to the space beside him, to a shadow curled next to him in the bed, and not saw it. Another body, his own, asleep, unmoving, breathing slowly as if nothing had ever happened. He tried to scream, tried to move, but nothing worked. The woman leaned over the sleeping version of him and began humming again, a soft, sad tune, the melody rising and falling like a chant heard through thick smoke. Then she turned, fully, slowly. Her face was no longer burned. It was beautiful, young, gentle. But her eyes were not eyes. They were voids, reflective, and in their mirrored surface he saw the fire. He saw her holding 2 children. He saw a man screaming through smoke. He saw walls painted with prayer charms and strings arranged in sacred patterns. He saw flames consuming it all. And through it all, she kept humming. Then her lips stopped and moved again. This time, she didn't whisper. She mouthed a single word. "Stay." And the lights went out. When Nott opened his eyes, it was morning, real morning. Sunlight, cars outside, his phone buzzing. He gasped and sat up. He was alone in the room. The air was back to normal. The teddy bear still sat in the corner. But the other version of himself was gone. Or maybe it had always been him. He checked his phone. No new alerts, no calls, no messages. But in the Silver and Link app, there was one change. A new device listed under Connected Home Sensors. Unit 1207. Bedside sensor. Last recorded movement. 2 occupants. Time 1:13 a.m. That night, he left the door open. He laid out the red string in a perfect circle around his bed. He placed the teddy bear in the center and waited. At 1:13 a.m., the lights dimmed, the door creaked, the lullaby returned, and she stood there, not moving, not threatening, just watching, as if she was waiting for him to remember something, to surrender something, to let go of something that never belonged to the living. The call came again. Same time, same number. +666. But this time, Nott answered. He didn't mean to. He didn't want to. But when the screen lit up, glowing in the dark like a wound that wouldn't close, his thumb moved on its own, and the call connected. There was no voice, just static. Then breathing, wet, rattling, slow. Then a soft sound like wind chimes in a burning house, a lullaby almost too quiet to hear, and then a whisper. His name, not Nott, not Natti, but both, spoken at once, spoken like a prayer and a curse. You are the only one who came back. The line went dead. The phone shut off. The air turned cold. And Nott sat there, heart racing, feeling like something ancient had just looked at him through a keyhole in time. That morning, his phone refused to charge. His SIM card read unregistered. His photos were gone, his contacts erased. Only one remained, a saved number labeled May, Mom. But Not's mother had passed away 5 years ago. He opened the message thread. One unread message. From last night. Come home. I've been waiting. Attached was a photo. A blurry image of him, sleeping. Taken from above. Taken from inside his apartment. He ran to the security office, demanded to see the building's camera logs. The guard, a young woman who had just started last week, looked startled, then apologetic. I'm sorry, sir. Your unit's camera feed was corrupted 2 nights ago. We can't access any recent footage. Who can? She hesitated, then said softly, only admin. He clenched his jaw. Who's the admin? She looked at her screen, frowned. There's no name. He took the elevator to the 12A floor, but he didn't go home. He walked past Unit 1207 and kept going, toward the stairwell. He opened the door and saw something he hadn't seen before. A second flight, downward, unmarked, dusty, forgotten. It wasn't on the blueprint, wasn't on the app, wasn't supposed to exist, but it was there. So he followed it, step after step. 13 steps down, exactly 13. And then a single black door with no handle, just a peephole. He leaned in, saw nothing. Then, just as he started to pull back, an eye blinked on the other side. He stumbled back, but the door remained still, silent, as if it hadn't moved, as if it had never been there. But now, he couldn't unsee it. That night, the app turned on by itself, opened to a blank white screen. Then a message began typing across it, one letter at a time. N-A-T-E. Then, return. Then, the fire remembers. And finally, the door is open. His phone turned off and wouldn't power on again. He lit candles in the living room, real ones, placed them in a square. He sat in the center with the teddy bear in his lap and whispered, "What do you want from me?" There was no reply, only the smell, ash, hair, smoke, and the faint sound of something heavy being dragged across the floorboards outside. It passed slowly and then stopped right at his door. No knock, just silence. Then, bzzz, the intercom buzzed. Once, then again, then again. He approached it. The screen was off, but the speaker crackled. Then a whisper, "You lived. We didn't." He opened the door. No one was there. Only footprints in ash leading away toward the elevator. He followed them, pressed the button. The elevator opened immediately. Inside, the lights were already dimmed. And on the floor, a cell phone. His, working, unlocked. The screen showing a countdown. 000013. He stepped inside. As the doors closed, the timer hit 0, and the phone rang. +666. He answered. This time there was a voice, a woman's, calm, too calm.
The hallway is not the end. The floor is not the prison. You are.
The elevator jolted, then began moving, but not up, not down, just moving as if shifting between two worlds layered like forgotten pages. The panel blinked. All the buttons disappeared. Only one remained. Return. The elevator stopped. The doors opened. He stepped out into fire. The fire didn't burn him. It held him. Soft at first, warm, like memory, not flame. Not stepped forward, expecting pain, but there was none. Only the sensation of moving through thick smoke that whispered. Each breath pulled voices from the air, cries, laughter, a lullaby sung backward, words he couldn't understand and yet knew were meant for him. You're not dreaming. You're remembering in the wrong direction. When the smoke cleared, he wasn't in the hallway anymore. He was in his old apartment, the first one, the place he lived when he was a child, back in Chiang Mai. The same wooden floors, the same yellow walls, the small desk where he used to draw in silence. But everything was too still, frozen. Dust hung motionless in the air like suspended time. He stepped into the room and saw a boy sitting on the floor, coloring. Crayons scattered, a teddy bear at his feet. Nat's throat tightened. It was him, maybe 6 years old. Same face, same scar above the right eyebrow, same posture, legs folded in, head tilted, humming under his breath. The boy looked up, but his eyes were blank, completely white. Then he spoke. "Why did you stop drawing?" Nat couldn't answer. He hadn't drawn since before the fire. Wait, what fire? This wasn't his home anymore. This wasn't real. He turned away, walked through the kitchen. The oven door was open, empty. The window was covered in soot from the inside. He opened the fridge. No food, just ashes. And on the inside of the door, scrawled in something dark, "Time only burns for the living." The lights flickered, and suddenly he was standing in the Silvaran hallway again. But now, everything was backward. The numbers on the doors ran in reverse. 14, 12A, 12, 11. His feet moved on their own, his hands trembled, and his phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out. A message was typing itself. From unknown. Go back to when you started forgetting. Then another. Go back to before you survived. The elevator opened behind him. Inside, the mirrors were covered with soot, except for a small circle wiped clean. He stepped in, saw his reflection, and in the reflection, behind him, the woman, the one who hummed. Only this time, she looked like someone he knew, familiar. Her face flickered between forms, first his mother, then a stranger, then himself, and then nothing, just flame. The elevator didn't move. Instead, the screen flashed a prompt, "Input floor." He hesitated, then typed 3, the floor number that no longer existed. The elevator dinged and descended. When the doors opened, it was night, not in the building, outside. He was on a sidewalk he hadn't seen in years, the alley where the shop house once stood. Except now, it was intact, unburned, lights on, shadows moving behind the curtains. It was the night before the fire. He walked toward the front gate, hands shaking. A red string hung across the entrance, fluttering in the wind. Paper charms were pinned to the doorways, warnings, protections, but none of them had worked. Inside he could hear voices, a family talking, laughing, eating. He stepped forward and saw himself at the table as a child, and saw the little girl again, the one with the teddy bear. She looked up at him, then through him, and whispered, "If you walk away again, the fire stays open." But Nat couldn't move, because standing behind her, just barely visible in the dark hallway, was something else. Something tall, faceless, wrapped in a robe of black smoke and ash, its head cocked at a crooked angle. It didn't step, it slid. And as it reached toward the family, Nat screamed, but no one heard him. Not the girl, not the child version of himself, not the parents, only the thing. And it smiled. Then everything burned. He jolted awake on his apartment floor, back in Silvarin, soaked in sweat, smoke alarm blinking red, but silent. Outside, the hallway lights flickered, and the walls smelled of incense again. His phone buzzed. One new alert. Silvarin Link admin. Unauthorized access to floor 3 detected at 1:13 a.m. There was no floor 3. Not anymore. He checked the blueprint again, old versus new, overlaid them, and something clicked. His unit, 1207 on floor 12A, was built directly over what used to be room 3, the top floor of the shop house, the room that started the fire, the room where the prayers were whispered and never finished, the room where the ritual failed, the room they died in, the room he survived. He stared at the blueprint for a long time, until one final message appeared on the screen. No sender, no reply option, just text. Backward isn't the past, it's the path. Go back again. He didn't leave the apartment the next day, didn't speak, didn't eat. He just stared at the blueprint on his screen, overlaid again and again. Modern floor plan on top of the original shop house layout. No matter how he aligned it, the conclusion stayed the same. His apartment, Unit 1207, floor 12A, was exactly where room 3 used to be. The room that caught fire first, the room where the ritual failed, the room where a child lived, a child named Nati. Him. He dug deeper, found an archived police report, brief, half-redacted. It confirmed what the articles didn't. One body had been recovered, a child, survived with minor burns. No ID, no family, no one came forward. He was placed in foster care, renamed, reborn. Nat. He had forgotten, or been made to forget. The trauma buried like smoke behind his eyes. But the fire had remembered. The dead had remembered. And now, the walls remembered too. At 12:47 a.m., the lights dimmed again. No alert this time, no app glitch, just stillness. Then the elevator chimed once, then twice, as if waiting for him. He rose, slowly, walked barefoot to the hallway. The panel inside glowed red this time, not white, not blue, red. And the only button was labeled Room 3. Not a floor, a room. He pressed it. The elevator doors closed and the descent began. But the screen showed no numbers, just one word pulsing across the display. Remember. When the doors opened, there was no hallway, Just one door ahead. Familiar, wooden, scorched at the edges. A red string still tied across the top and carved into the door frame, barely legible beneath the soot. Jam Dai Mai? Do you remember? Nat reached forward. The door opened before he touched it. Inside was the room from his childhood, but now ruined, walls blackened, floorboards warped, melted toys in the corner, the desk half collapsed, and in the center, a circle of ash, unbroken. He stepped in and sat, not because he wanted to, but because he knew he had to. It was his place. It had always been. Then came the voices, layered, stacked. The family praying, the father chanting, the mother crying, the little girl humming, and the fire speaking in between. He lived because they bound him to us. They saved the child by trapping the fire in his name, but he forgot, and so we stayed. Nat whispered, barely audible, "I didn't know." The fire answered, "But now you do." A figure stepped from the shadows. The little girl, the one with the melted teddy bear. She stood just outside the ash circle, barefoot, on scorched wood. She held out the bear. Nat reached for it, but she pulled back and asked, "Will you finish the prayer now?" Nat nodded, but he didn't know the words. Still, something rose in his throat. Not speech, memory, instinct, grief passed down through smoke. He closed his eyes and whispered words he hadn't spoken in decades. Old Thai prayers, half forgotten, not perfect, but real. He lit a match, held it to the ashes. The flame rose, quietly, softly, and stayed contained. The circle glowed, the air calmed, and the girl smiled for the first time. Then the room began to shift, walls fading, ceiling peeling into stars, floor becoming smoke. The girl's outline blurred, the teddy bear dropped, and she whispered, "We can go now. You can stay." Nat shook his head, not in fear, but in understanding. "No," he said, "not yet." She nodded and vanished. He woke up in bed, in his apartment, the light steady, the air clear. The string on his wrist, gone. The teddy bear, gone. But the scent of incense lingered, soft and warm. And the app on his phone, no more glitches, no more ghost floors, just one final message. Silverin. Link. Room cleansed. The fire has passed. Floor 13 removed. He stood by the window, watching the river glow with morning light, and for the first time in weeks, he felt peace, but peace with weight, like the end of a long prayer. Not silence, but closure.
Nat didn't tell anyone what happened. What would he even say? That a forgotten fire reached through time? That a floor erased from blueprints still breathed beneath his feet? That the girl in the vent had been waiting not for revenge, but for release? No one would believe him. Maybe that was for the best. Because even now, days later, he wasn't sure he believed it either. Not completely. But some things were different. Small things. The vents no longer whispered. The elevator no longer dinged at 113. The red string was gone from his wrist. His smart lock worked again. And the building's app, once cluttered with ghost floors and hidden messages,
now showed only what it should. No floor 13, no room 3, no emergency alerts with his name. Still, the silence felt artificial, like a stage after the actors have left, cleaned, wiped, but not forgotten. So Nat visited the temple again, the one near the river. The same monk was there, the one with quiet eyes and a face carved by years of prayer. Nat sat in front of him, hands folded, and said quietly, "I saw them, the ones who burned. I saw where they died. I was there." The monk listened, head slightly tilted, eyes half closed. "I tried to finish the prayer. I think it worked, but I don't know how to be sure." The monk opened his eyes fully now and asked a single question. "Did you purify the space?" I lit incense." The monk smiled gently. "Incense is for calling, not sending." Nat frowned. "I thought I freed them." "You remembered them," the monk said. "You named them. That is the beginning. But fire must be honored with water. Ash must be grounded with salt. The living must separate from the dead." He handed Nat a small cloth bundle. Inside, sea salt, holy water, and a red candle carved with protective script. "Go back," the monk said softly. "This time, invite them to leave." That night, Nat prepared everything. He turned off all the lights, laid out the salt in a circle near the center of the apartment, poured a small dish of holy water, placed the red candle in the middle, and lit it. Then, in the silence, he whispered, "If you are still here, I give you permission to go." At first, nothing happened, just the flickering of the flame. Then, the air shifted, grew heavier, colder. The windows fogged from the inside, and the flame bent sideways as if pulled by breath. Then came the sound, not a whisper, not a voice, but the soft crackle of fire returning. Nat held his ground. Tears stung his eyes. "Thank you for protecting me, but I'm not a child anymore. You don't have to stay." Then, from the darkness of the hallway, they appeared. All 4 of them, the family, the woman, the man, the little boy, and the girl, all faint, outlined in smoke. The girl stepped forward, teddy bear in her arms. She didn't speak, just looked at him and nodded. The father pressed his palms together and bowed. The mother smiled, though her face was still burned. The younger child held on to his sister's sleeve, silent. And as the candle burned lower, their shapes faded. Not violently, not in pain, but softly, like fog at sunrise, until the room was empty again. The flame went out. The dish of water tipped over on its own. The salt scattered like wind through the circle, and Nat felt something lift from his chest that he hadn't even realized was there. At 1:13 a.m., the elevator remained still. No ding, no motion, only silence. True silence. He opened the building app one last time, checked the logs. No movement. No alerts. Then he tapped on Floor Directory just to see. Only floors 1 through 14. No 12A, no 13, no hidden button, no backward numbering. And yet, at the bottom of the screen, a faint watermark appeared for a moment,
then faded before he could screenshot it. It said, "Purified, room 3, restored to memory." He turned off his phone, lit a single stick of incense, not to summon, just to honor, and whispered, "Go in peace." The hallway outside was silent. The vents didn't hum. The lights no longer flickered. The mirror stayed clear, and the walls, finally, truly, stopped watching.
The peace didn't last. Not completely. Not in the way Nat had hoped. The air was still. The floor quiet. No more chimes at 1:13 a.m. No red strings. No messages from beyond. But there was still one thing. The feeling, like something was listening, not constantly, but waiting, watching from a deeper place, not behind the walls, but beneath them. He kept the monk's candle, even after it burned low, set the leftover wax on the windowsill, a reminder that sometimes survival is not victory, it's responsibility. 2 weeks passed. No signs, no dreams, no fire. Until one night, as he brushed his teeth, he noticed something strange. His reflection. It didn't blink when he did. It lagged, just slightly, barely noticeable. But once seen, it couldn't be unseen. He stared, waited, and the reflection blinked before him. He stepped back, tried to rationalize. Poor lighting, exhaustion. Maybe the mirror warped slightly from the steam. He wiped the glass clean, but something lingered in the air. A scent he hadn't smelled in days. Ash. Faint, like something that had traveled on someone's clothes or been disturbed after resting too long. That night, he woke to a sound. Soft, wet, like something dragging along the hallway floor. He sat up in bed, listening. The vents were silent. The lights didn't flicker, but the dragging continued, steady, deliberate, growing louder, closer. Then, silence. He held his breath. Footsteps now. Just one pair, barefoot, sticky against the laminate floor. Then they stopped, right outside his bedroom door. The knob turned, didn't open, just turned, then back, as if whoever was on the other side had decided not to come in. The next morning, Nat found a single handprint on the wall outside his bedroom, low to the ground, small, child-sized, smudged in gray soot. He returned to the temple that afternoon. The monk was sweeping leaves, not approached. "There's something still here." The monk nodded without surprise. Sometimes, when the spirit leaves, the echo remains. Not frowned. An echo? The monk looked up. Not the soul, not the ghost, just the memory, burned into the place, into you. Nat swallowed. "So what do I do?" The monk smiled gently. "You live, respectfully, with awareness. Ash never sleeps, but it also doesn't chase." Back at the apartment, Nat did something he hadn't done in weeks. He opened all the windows, let the air circulate, let the wind take whatever it needed. He swept the floor, scrubbed the walls, repainted the trim, and when he got to the smudged handprint, he didn't clean it. He traced around it with white paint, sealing the soot into the wall beneath, not to erase it, but to honor it, to acknowledge it. That night, the building app updated. A small notification popped up. Silver in link, new feature, legacy floors, historical archive mode now available. He opened it. There, hidden in the interface, was a grayscale layout of the building's original plan. It showed the shophouse footprint beneath the high-rise. Room 1, Room 2, Room 3. He tapped Room 3. A soft audio file played, crackling, then humming, then silence. The voice on the recording was his own, younger, softer, saying just one word: goodbye. He stared at the screen for a long time, then closed the app and whispered it again, this time out loud. Goodbye. No flames followed, no whispers answered, but the air shifted, just slightly, as if someone had finally turned away. It happened on a Sunday. Bright sky, clear air. The kind of day that made you forget darkness ever existed. Nat had gone downstairs for the first time in weeks, breathing in sunlight like medicine. No haunting dreams, no echoes from the vents. The building felt ordinary. He stood in the lobby and pressed the elevator button like any other resident. Ding! The doors opened. He stepped in, alone. The panel glowed softly. Nothing strange, just floors 1 through 14. He reached to press 12A, paused, then noticed something. A faint groove. Not a button, but a scar, right between 12A and 14. Barely visible, not lit, not labeled, but there. He stared at it. His reflection stared back. This time it blinked with him. He didn't press it, not this time. He let the elevator take him home. Later that night, he sat by the window. The river glittered outside. Boats moved like ghosts across the water. And from somewhere deep in the walls, too distant to be frightening, he heard it. A hum. The lullaby, but softer now, like someone singing to themselves in another room. A memory echoing once more before fading. Not calling, not warning, just existing, like ash in the cracks of an old floorboard. He opened his notebook and wrote down everything. The fire, the elevator, the floor that wasn't there, the child, the voice on the phone, the backward stairs, the woman who watched him sleep. He wrote it all. Not to prove anything, not to share, but to remember, because forgetting had been the real haunting. At 1:13 a.m., he stood in the hallway, in silence, not out of fear, but reverence. He placed a small candle on the ground where the elevator usually dinged, lit it, watched the flame flicker once, then go still. The air remained quiet, still, balanced. No elevators moved, no doors opened. But Nat knew something had shifted. The floor hadn't disappeared. It had rested, at last. He walked back to his unit, closed the door gently, locked it. Not out of habit, but respect. He poured a glass of water and set it next to the window. For them. For the ones who never made it out. Then turned off the lights, climbed into bed, and slept. There were no dreams, no visions, no fire. Just sleep. Unbroken, whole. Like waking after years of forgetting who you used to be. But in the building system, buried beneath the interface, beyond what any tenant would see, a quiet log entry was created. It read, Floor 13, status, quiet, last occupant, nay T, survivor, memory retained, ritual completed, access sealed. Then, after a long pause, until called again,